had a schedule about a month ago because of, our leadership, Chris and Dr. McPhee, allowing our players to come back in August. And so we've kind of been working, and some of the NCAA, they cut us a little slack on how much we could practice, and we could work with our teams, our players as a team in a team setting. And we had them, we had the month of August and a month of September to kind of work more with them than we have been able to in the past. And so I was real satisfied with where we were at. Now, we had a little setback about a couple of weeks ago when we had a young lady that tested positive and we had to go on quarantine. But we're back practicing now. Everybody's in good spirits. Everybody's in great shape. We got a full roster. Very excited about the attitude. I think one of the things in coaching for 44 years, really 46 years, but they seem coming back. I don't think they're taking practice. I don't think they're taking each other for granted anymore. I see us having a little bit better chemistry. I see our work ethic is a little bit better, and I see us pulling for each other more than we've done in the past. So I'm pretty satisfied right now with what's going on with our basketball team, with everything that we've got. Now, of course, we have to deal with the COVID situation, the pandemic, and that's an everyday thing that we're having to go through now. And, the pressure's kind of on the training staff and the training room and Chris more than it's on us getting our teams ready right now for the season.
Nick, when we talked back in, what was it, May or June, I guess the last time we had the basketball coaches on, you were talking about your kids and you've got a cluster of them that come from the Atlanta metro area. And, a lot of those guys might have been playing some pickup ball or whatever. Were you happy with where they came back to campus with what they had been doing and what you guys had laid out for them? And kind of tell us where you are right now.
Well, kind of similar to where Coach Insel is with his ladies and their program is we feel fortunate to have been working since the 1st of August. As he mentioned, Chris Massaro and Dr. McPhee allowed our players to come back before school started. So we got, started on conditioning and things like that before school started. And we've been really fortunate. We had to quarantine when our guys got back into town. But since then, we've been really lucky as far as our COVID testing is concerned. I like where we're headed and our group and how they're working. As I mentioned the other day to some folks, it's really hard, but everybody's dealing with it. But it's hard to bring a group together and really mesh them and try to develop that team chemistry, as Coach Insel was referring to, when all COVID protocols say split up, be apart, separate. And so it's an interesting dynamic. You're trying to really get them to go overboard and be like this when they're together. And then as soon as practice is over, you're telling them, no, but make sure you're mask wearing and social distancing so we can get a chance to do this tomorrow.
So what since you're not in season yet, for both of you, what is the testing protocol at this point of the school year for your teams?
Who you want to answer that first, me or
either one of you or both? You go ahead.
Well, basically, to give you an example, I think in the last 2 weeks, we've tested our players maybe 3 or 4 times. Our thing now is if anyone, feels like they're anywhere near sick or anything that they don't think is normal, then we get them tested right then. And we start taking precautions on what we need to be doing. If then, in some cases, that would be if they're in a room with another player, then they'll have to be quarantined. There won't be any practices. And of course, I think the quarantine protocol is 10 to 14 days, something along those lines. And again, that falls back on our training staff. And so just recently, Chris and myself, and I think Nick was involved on his end, but I can't speak for Nick, but I can speak for us. Chris and myself have sat down with our staff, and we've come up with a practice protocol where we want the kids to stand when they're not practicing, social distance. There's so many things I could go over. We could spend this whole webinar just on that. But our leadership has taken the precautions that's been needed to make sure that we can get our team to the playing court. And I will forever be grateful for that, for what's happened with Dr. McPhee and also Chris.
Nick, kind of pick it up from there and talk about now that practice has started and games are coming up on November 25th. Rick will be at home. You guys will be in Fort Myers. So what will those protocols change to as we get to the season?
Well, we've been in surveillance testing mode over the last several weeks, where you're having to test at least 20% of the folks in your organization. So we were testing several of our players at least once a week, usually picking a guy out of each apartment. Would give you a pretty good idea if they were negative, then perhaps their roommates were doing okay as well. As we're into regular season mode, we're testing everybody once a week. That's all coaches, all players, and our managers are getting tested once a week. And we've been, again, really fortunate on that. We're getting the results back quickly, actually in less than a 24-hour period. So we know once they're tested, we'll know before we're back on the court tomorrow if we have an issue. As we get to within 1 week of our regular season games, we'll be required to test 3 times a week. And those 3 tests cannot be on consecutive days. And so our training staff is doing a really good job of looking at the schedule and then backing it up to where, for a Friday game, you're able to test Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, to where you're able to get those 3 tests in 1 week without any of them being on consecutive days. And those protocols will vary as the season goes forward, because from one league to the next, you may not have the same testing protocols. And that's where, as Coach Insel and my staff as well has found that scheduling is really, it's already difficult in any year. And it has become increasingly difficult when you're trying to find opponents who have light testing protocols.
By the way, we got in the chat function, Ronnie Cutshaw says, hello, Coach Nick. So there's that. And that reminds me to remind all of you watching, you can put in a question in the Q&A function or in chat or on at radio@goblueraiders.com. And Coach Insel, we have a couple, Adam and Smyrna wanted to know, how has the schedule been affected by COVID-19? And have you still been able to schedule the high caliber non-conference teams as you have in years past?
Well, just off the top of my head, we've lost ECU, VCU, and Kentucky. So, and Tennessee Tech. So you look at if you look now, East Carolina was going to be probably in the top 5 in their conference. VCU won their conference last year. It's got everybody back. We beat VCU last year, so we had to go there. And then Kentucky is ranked in the top 4 in the nation. And we're not going to be able to go up there this year, but we're going to be able to keep all of those games on schedule in the years to come. I mean, ECU had to come here. We got to go to VCU in Kentucky, but they're going to continue to schedule us. And then Tennessee Tech has been a game that, we've been playing, and they were picked kind of to be, I think, maybe win their conference. Or people were talking about that them and Belmont, maybe UT Martin were picked at the top of their conference. So the 4 games that we lost there are pretty tough, but you got to look what we got. I mean, we open up right now with Louisville. It's still on go. Louisville's on go. They, matter of fact, picked to play us. They had to drop a TCU and somebody else, and they kept us on the schedule because of our RPI. And so we're very, very happy with that. We got Louisville at home, the 25th, Vanderbilt at home on a Sunday, Belmont at home, and Tulane at home. And then we fly to TCU and have Troy back at home. This is all before Christmas. So we still got a tough schedule. Yep. And we got to hit the ground running. I mean, we got no exhibition. And so when they open the doors up and whatever game time that Chris sets and they throw the ball up, then we got to be ready.
Yes, sir. Well, we're going to talk about the conference schedule in just a minute because the league has made an announcement about the conference schedule and what that, and it is different this year. So stick around for that. Now, Nick, on your non-conference schedule, it's been kind of like the folks on the Ed Sullivan show that tried to keep all the plates spinning in the air because I mean you had to try to move some games from prior to November 25th to afterwards, and how are things starting to stack up with your non-conference schedule?
Things are falling in line pretty well. We've lost a couple games because of other schedule changes. We had, we're trying to figure out a way to continue playing Belmont. We will always continue to play Belmont, but we may lose that game for a year. We lost a money game where we were going to play Washington State. The tournament that we are in they slid it by 2 days. It was originally scheduled to start on the 23rd. They were able to slide that start date to the 25th in order for that tournament to continue to happen. There were other tournaments that were forced to do the same thing. For instance, the Charleston Classic got moved to Orlando and the dates moved. Well, College of Charleston is in that tournament this year. Well, they were coming here to play us at home, and now that tournament date coincides with when they were going to come here. So we lost that game as well. So we still have a challenging schedule. We've got Murray State, Chattanooga, Ole Miss is coming here. We're in the tournament down in Florida. So still got some exciting games on the table.
Okay, the Conference USA schedule, and I want to read this right off the conference website, and then we'll kind of tell people what does this really mean. It says Conference USA will be making adjustments to its regular season conference scheduling and championship formats for men's and women's basketball as approved by the league's board of directors. Okay, this season, the league will move to a new 18-game regular season format for conference play that focuses on health and safety of student athletes. In this format, schools will play 2 games per visit at 4 different schools and will host 4 teams for a 2-game series. And you will play basically your travel partner a home and home. What that means, basically, when you look at the schedule, uh, is that, let's say, for instance, when one of your team, with whether either one of you normally would go to Florida and play FIU on a Thursday and FAU on a Saturday, what this means is you will now, if you have to travel down, you will play whichever one of them, FIU or FAU, you'll play them 2 games, and then possibly the next week you come home and play the other school for 2 games, and you have 4 home, 4 road, 2-game swings, and then it'll be UAB for us, home and home. And so again, I'll start with Coach Insel here. Different type of format, and playing a same opponent back to back, basically in a span of 48, 72 hours. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't. My thoughts are I'm glad we're playing. Uh, can I be totally happy with this format? When we're at right now in this pandemic, we ain't got any choice. And what that does, that keeps if there is a positive, it keeps 2 teams that might have to be quarantined instead of 4 teams. It's why they did that. And so, there'll be some pluses and minuses to that, but there should be some good games too. We got Western Kentucky, we got a Western, so that means I'm going to have to spend some time in Bowling Green. I don't like that, but I'm going to have to spend some of Middle Tennessee's money in Bowling Green. I don't like that.
I thought you would go up and back twice.
Well, we may do that, to be honest with you, but and then I don't have to go to ODU this year. They come to us, but we do have to go to Charlotte, which that's a good flight in. So, I think the conference has done as well as they can do. And I take a lot of pride in what our commissioner has done and the people that help her. And along with our ADs, they're not, I guess, totally happy with what's going on, but they're happy that we're going to have a basketball season. And I'm very much happy about that too. And I think our fans will be. It'll be something different. And, be something for them to come out and get into it with. So I'm happy for our kids, and I'm happy that we're getting to play.
Nick, on the men's side, we've had a taste of this just a little bit over the last couple of years, playing UAB right in the middle of the season, playing them back-to-back games on a home-and-home basis. Now, if you go to uh, Huntington, West Virginia, you're going to be there for 4 days. Part of the reasoning was, I guess for all the teams, you're exposed to less people, whether it be, going to 2 different arenas, things like that, or keeping you out of an airport or those kind of things. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Everybody had to figure out a way to be able to put the ball in the air. And, you just have to think outside the box, get creative. We're all fortunate that if things continue down the path we're going right now, that we're going to get to play here in about 5 weeks. And as a league, we were able to come together and figure out how to minimize travel, which obviously kept student athletes and the coaches out of international airports where there's a risk of that spread. Obviously, this pandemic has affected a lot of people, both individually and with corporations financially. And so with less travel, obviously comes less expenses. So it not only finds a way to keep your players as safe and healthy as possible, but also it's a cost saving measure at the same time. And with that schedule, they not only keep playing 2 games in 3 days in the same town versus the same opponent, but also regionalizing your opponent as well. For our schedule, for instance, we will not play any of the 4 Texas teams this year, either home or away. We won't play UTEP, North Texas, Rice, or UTSA. So not only is it 2 games in 3 days, as I mentioned, but the distance in which we travel changes as well.
Have they also, I don't know, I know there was some talk about on Saturdays, if you were not on regular television, not streaming, but if you were not on the ESPNs or the CBS Sports Network, that the games would be played earlier to allow the visiting team the opportunity to get home. Again, cost saving measure there.
And that is correct. That has taken place, and unless obviously we all want to brand, get our brand out there and the name of our programs and our universities out there. So if there's a chance to play on national television on ESPN at 7 o'clock at night, you're going to do it. But otherwise, for the non-televised games, I believe you have to tip it no later than 2 o'clock local time, which obviously you're talking about 4 o'clock local time, game ending. In an ideal world, you're out of there at 4:30, 5 o'clock. So there's usually a pretty decent chance you can find a flight home or be able to bus it home that night after the game.
Yep. All right. We've talked schedule. We've talked the league. Now let's talk to the Jimmies and Joes for you guys who are going to be doing the X's and O's. And we'll start with Coach Insel. And for both teams, tell you folks, there are a lot of new faces on both of these teams. But Coach Insel, I'll start with you. You have some really intriguing new faces on your ball club, but the returning nucleus that you have is very, very solid.
Are you talking to me, Chip?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I think we got a chance to really have a good team. I mean, it's going to, a lot of it, we're not going to have a chance to really start our engines because when we start them, we got to be ready to go. And if you look at what we had last year with Anastasia and Ace, Alexis around the perimeter, I think that's probably as good as anybody in the conference, to be honest with you. And then, we added Deja from the 5th-year transfer out of Ole Miss, which is from Chicago originally, and she's a player also. And then you look at Taylor Lewis has gotten better, and Amanda Whittington's gotten better. So that's kind of our perimeter right there. And then we finished up last year with Courtney, of course, is just solid inside. I mean, absolutely solid. We got Rashika that'll be coming back. I think Rashika's got a chance to to be as good as anybody we've had at Middle Tennessee at the post position. Could she be an Alicia Clark? No, she's not that type of player. But could she be a Cheyenne Parker? Absolutely. I think that Rella Booth could be as talented as any player. I told our coaches this morning, her basketball IQ reminds me a lot of Amber Holt. So you remember the Amber Holt days, but Rella's in pretty good shape right now, and she's practicing harder than I've ever seen her practice. She's got a better work ethic than I've ever seen her have. She's got a better attitude than I've ever seen her have. And so I just knock on wood every morning because I'm hoping she stays right where she's at and just keeps working, because I think she's the type of young lady that's just absolutely unstoppable when you get her the ball. But then you go back to Anastasia. There's nobody in our league that's going to guard Anastasia one-on-one. Bottom line, it's not going to be done. And then Ace running the point, I think she's one of the best point guards I've ever had. Chelsea, Ty Petty, Shanice, you can just go right down the line. Caroline, they were all great point guards. I think Ace has got a chance to be better than all of them. And our coaches were talking about this morning about, well, we got to make sure that we got somebody that can knock down shots. Well, in our offensive structure yesterday, there was 5 different times that the ball went to Alexis Whittington, and she knocked down 5 threes. So that kind of answers itself. So our young kids that we've got coming in, the young lady from Russia, the young lady from Canada, the young lady from Spain, they're really getting after it. I mean, just absolutely getting after it. So they're going to give us the needed depth, because all 3 of them are freshmen and they're post players. And 2 of them, one of them 6'5" and the other one 6'4". So where we were kind of weak at last year, I think it's going to be one of our strengths. But again, I would have liked to seen us, and we're not going to have this, but I would have liked to seen us had some exhibitions and kind of stayed on the structure that we had before with this class. The big positive part about this is this whole class comes back next year.
Yeah.
So there's some of them that could qualify if they want to and go to the WNBA. But this whole bunch comes back next year, along with we've got 3 young ladies right now that have been committed to us and will be signing here in another probably 3 weeks with us. We add that to them. So the Lady Raider basketball program is on a good foundation right now.
Absolutely. Now, Nick, again, folks need to buy a program when your guys come out on the floor. What is it? Am I correct? 9 new faces that will, which includes Dishman, who was there a year ago, but we almost saw him play. But your roster will have a completely different look this year.
A good combination of returning nucleus of Donovan Sims, who's been a 2-year starter, Jace Johnson, who's been a 2-year starter, Eli Lawrence, Tyson Jackson, Tyler Millen, all guys that got quality minutes as freshmen. And then, as you mentioned, you're adding 9 new bodies, 5 Division I transfers that sat out last year. We've got 4 newcomers this year. So you're right. We'll need a game program to know who's who out there, particularly for our fans. But we're excited about our group. We've been fortunate to have several team practices. The NCAA increased the amount of hours that we were able to have with our players on the court in your off-season workouts. Normally that's limited to 4 a week. For a 2 or 3 week period, they increased it from 4 hours a week to 8. With that 8 hours, we were able to have several 1.5 and 2 hour practices before we got to our official first day of practice. So when you count those workouts, our practices over the last week or so, we've been able to install some things in both the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball, and are really playing 5 weeks from yesterday. So I like where our group is headed. They're really trying to figure out ways to learn each other's likes and dislikes on both sides. But I like our team.
What will be the differences fans will see in your style of play?
Ours?
Yes.
I think this year's team we're a little bigger. I think as a group from top to bottom, we shoot it a little better than we have, a little more athletic. I don't think we'll necessarily have a style play difference. We can afford to be a little bit more aggressive. That doesn't mean be a chance-taking team, but in the past, with fewer eligible bodies, you just couldn't be really aggressive. We couldn't soak up fouls. We couldn't soak up injuries by putting another player in the game. Now we're fortunate enough to have some depth to where we can afford to be a little bit more aggressive, afford to trap a little bit if we want to, afford to be a pressing team, because we're not only playing 8 bodies who can't afford to run up and down the entire night. We may be quite a few players deeper and be able to apply more pressure throughout the course of the game.
All right. One thing as we wrap up, Coach, you mentioned Alicia Clark. She is part of this year's Hall of Fame class, along with Heather Prater, 2 women's basketball players. I think for the first time ever, 2 women's basketball players going in. Bryce Brents, Clay Snellgrove, Kendall Newsom, and Mike Harmon are part of the class of 2020. We have done their inductions and want to let fans know they can put on their calendar November 5th at 7 o'clock. We will have the video. It'll be basically the premiere of what is a virtual Hall of Fame induction. They've all been to town to do their part. I know you're quite proud to have 2 terrific young ladies go into the Hall of Fame this year.
Oh, I'm telling you, 2 very deserving young ladies. And, the Prater, I watched her play in high school. I mean, we were in camp games, and then of course state tournaments, and I think she won a state championship. Just a heady player. And of course, Alicia Clark, everybody knows about Alicia and what she's been able to do and what she's done with her career. And I couldn't be more proud for her and her family. And Heather the same way. Heather's come to some of our games, and she's got a daughter, I think, that plays. But 2 very deserving young ladies, and we're very honored. Middle Tennessee State University Lady Raider basketball program to have those 2 young ladies going into our Hall of Fame. Very honored.
Well, coaches, thank you for your time today. And I know you guys have to get ready for practice. And, well, like Nick said, 5 weeks from yesterday, it will tip up. The Lady Raiders will have Louisville at the Murphy Center that night. That is the Wednesday night before Thanksgiving, while the Blue Raiders on that same day or night, we don't know just yet, but they will be in Fort Myers for the Gulf Coast Showcase, and we'll have more information on all of that as we can continue along. So, guys, thanks so much.
Thanks, Chip.
Thank y'all.
Go Blue. Right, Coach?
Right here, baby. Right here. Always. I can't wait.
I know that's right. Okay, we will pivot here and go from talking about the product on the floor to your ability to see that product. And Director of Athletics Chris Massaro is joining us, along with Associate Athletic Director for Ticketing James Kentfield. And first of all, Chris, we've gone through football with the limited capacity. Obviously, as we move to an indoor sport, that will also be happening. So what can you give us as far as an update on what capacity will be and where we stand right now? Again, 5 weeks away from opening day.
Yeah, and Chip, it's always a evolving situation. So, and I've got some documents that are literally fresh off the press. So first of all, like, it's really hard on all of us that nobody wants to do these things, and for our fans and those kind of things, that we just appreciate their support and their cooperation. It's been fantastic in football. We expect the same to be in basketball. I think people understand that we have to do these things, that we don't necessarily want to do these things, and know it's going to cause a disruption for our fan base. And so we've got to take a look at a lot of different things about our arena. And one of the things that kind of came a little bit of a surprise to us, to me last night and early this morning is that our board of directors for Conference USA met yesterday and implemented a 15% capacity restriction on our attendance. And so that's our cap number right now. And so that's a little lower than what we had anticipated. But that's what the presidents of our league voted for. And obviously they're wanting to keep everyone as safe as possible and be able to play games and those kind of things. So that's where we're starting off with, is a 15% capacity, which on 11,500, that's about 1,725 people. So that's automatically going to really limit us in what we can do. And we're going to have to utilize all the bleacher seats and all those kind of things to properly social distance everybody and those kind of things. So one of the other things that they passed last night is that there's a 50-foot restriction from the court to the first row of fans. So we really literally got to get the tape measure out again and see exactly where our starting point is with the seating of our fans. So what I do anticipate kind of the arena looking a whole lot different, and particularly with that 50-foot restrictions and the way our court's laid out, that'll probably wipe out the seats that are behind the basket, by where Coach Insel's team runs it onto the court and that kind of thing. So those behind the basket seats will probably be pushed in tight, and the first row will really start at that rail. Just doing some of our preliminary measurements. I think over at midcourt we'll be okay on a couple of those sections, and again we've got to remeasure, but hopefully we're hoping that we can start on row 3 and start putting people there. And so that's our biggest thing, is to determine where our starting points are with all this. The NCAA's weighed in on some of their restrictions, and now we're getting Conference USA restrictions, and just to make sure we're complying with all the standards that are really coming down and are freshly evolving. So I do want to tell our fans that number one, that we're going to provide a safe environment. We want you at our games, and you can come there and be comfortable and know that it's going to be as safe as environment as we can create in the middle of a pandemic. So that's number one. Number two, that we want to kind of offer a no holds guarantee kind of thing, and we've written this in letters, but I do want to emphasize this, is that if you choose not to buy tickets this year, whether your new location's not exactly where you want it to be, or if you're a little bit nervous about the whole operation and those kind of things, and just think it might be a year that you can opt out, that your exact same season tickets will be ready for you next year. And in fact, as soon as this pandemic's over, if we get a vaccine or treatments and the restrictions are done, then we would make that commitment too, is that we would get you your seats back and those kind of things. So we understand it's a different year. We understand it's hard on our fans, all of those kind of things. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for you guys as we all go through this together. But I do want to emphasize that we need you. Your support's important to us. We need all 1,700 to be in there for our games. If you can't make it, we would certainly encourage you to buy the tickets and use that as a donation to help defray some of the big costs that we're having as they're COVID related. So I'll be quiet and take questions, Chip, because I just said a lot. So I hope people. But the main message is that I want people to know that we don't want to do this, but it's something that we have to do in the middle of a pandemic, and it's the best way to keep everyone safe.
We do have several questions lined up, but I'll let James kind of chime in first of all to kind of get things moving on the ticketing side. Number one, James, first of all, thanks for being here. When do you plan on tickets being distributed to fans once this plan, now that this new information has come along about the number of fans? And also, will it be a total mobile ticketing situation like we have in football this year?
So thanks, Chip. Appreciate you joining us today and helping us get some information out to our fans. We're certainly very excited about the basketball season and listening to the two coaches speak about their schedules and their squads. I think it's going to be a great year in the Murphy Center. We're so excited to get back in there and have some fans with us. So we do have this a little bit of a new situation this year, where as opposed to sending out an invoice, we pivoted to a commitment form. And because of the social distancing guidelines that we're going to have in place in the Murphy Center, the select a seat route of allowing people to come in and physically pick out their seats versus having my staff just move you is I think going to be a good process for everyone to be involved with. So our plan is, we've sent the forms out last week, the commitment form and an explanation letter. We've actually been getting a lot. We had 71 envelopes come back in today, 30 or 40 yesterday, and 65 the day before. So we really appreciate everybody getting right on top of that. The deadline to get those back into us, we'd like to have them all back in by next Wednesday, which is the 28th. But once we get those back in, then we start getting everybody situated and processed. And then before, so the first week of November there, we're going to start getting everybody their appointment times to come out into the Murphy Center and select their seats for this upcoming season. And like Chris said, as soon as everything is in the clear here, we'll be able to revert back to their old seats from last season. We've also given folks the opportunity that if they weren't in a comfortable situation where they may not want to wear a mask or don't want to sit in a different seat, they can opt out this year, but you will still get your same seats next year. So regardless of your decision for this upcoming season, fans will still have the opportunity to get their seats that they had, last year. So at that event, once you pick out your seats, let me take a step back. When you make your way to the Murphy Center, you'll come down the loading dock and check in with us, and then an athletic department representative will make their way around the Murphy Center. We'll pick out seats together, and then we'll head over to the ticket office checkout table. At that time, we've thought about trying to print tickets right there, but that can back it up. The ticket printers don't move so fast. So we will probably just go ahead and start printing those back in the office and mail those out to folks. It seems like the better timely process. So I guess that answers your question. We're not going to try to take on the mobile ticketing process with basketball. There just wasn't enough leadway with football. It seemed we were able to get that info out a little bit quicker. And quite frankly, although I am extremely grateful for all of our football season ticket holders and how well it went, it's a lot easy to manage 5 or 6 tickets on your phone versus basketball seasons where there's 13, 14, 15 games. And
then,
there's enough going on already right now for our folks, and we love our fans. So that's one less thing that I think they don't have to worry about. If they wanted to access mobile tickets, they certainly could. But we're not going to impose that on folks this year. We're just going to go ahead and get them printed for them.
Chris, and that you mentioned like 13 home games, and then you double that with with men and women. Chris, we've had a couple of questions about that 1,725 number or so. Who all does that include? Does that include the teams, the arena workers? Will bands be allowed, cheerleaders, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and we're trying to sort through some of that because I just got that restriction this morning. But basically that includes all ticketed people. So I'm not sure if it includes the cheerleaders or not. It would include the bands because they normally sit in the seats, but anybody that's credentialed and those kind of things, I don't think it does. But I think that's the seating capacity. The basically, too, part of the restrictions that were passed down yesterday on it by the board of directors too is to not allow the bands in the arena as well. So so we'll see if there's any sort of appeal there on that. We had planned to put the band kind of high up in the bleacher seats and to cover the horns. There was some talk. We had an AD's meeting today of, well, not allowing any of the horns and maybe doing drum lines and those kind of things. So I think that might get discussed a little bit more. So that's still very, very fluid, Chip. But basically that number will include all ticketed people. So it's students, season ticket holders, player parents, all those kind of folks where we've got to divvy it up. So we'll put a pencil to it and come up with a great plan.
Well, I'll speak from a fan standpoint. I hope that somebody does appeal, and because the band and the spirit groups certainly add to the atmosphere and what you've done in football. And I understand, in a football stadium, you have a lot more room and more distance, but that seems to have worked and has worked for most places we've been so far.
Yeah, and I think that there's some differences there. I know the league presidents are concerned because this is an indoor facility as opposed to outdoor. And so the comparisons to football sometimes get a little bit lost in that. So from a safety point of view, and they're guided by the medical people in the conference, and we've got some tremendous hospitals and leading experts that have been with us on this thing. So I know that wasn't just an arbitrary decision, that it was done with a little bit of science, but again, that is there room in there to talk and those kind of things, and that's what I want to explore a little bit. And can you limit it to 5 horns or just drum lines, or are there ways to kind of work around that with smaller numbers and those kind of things, and still provide a safe environment? And I know that's our president's and our league's #1 priority is safety for all. And so some of those things that we all might not agree with kind of on the front side of it, but just know that the people that are making those decisions are doing it with the best interests of everyone in mind and the health and safety of everyone involved and those kind of things, because I don't think anybody wants to make those kind of decisions without science behind it.
We had a question, Don and Hannah Witherspoon, who are Raider roadies for sure. They have asked asked 2 questions, by the way, but before it actually came in before you mentioned the limited number of 1725. I would imagine with that, it's going to be very tough for visiting fans to go on the road to other arenas, and that would our fans going somewhere else, or for other visiting fans to come into our arena. Has there been any restrictions on that? And also, as a follow-up, they wanted to ask about fans being able to go to our own team's practices at the Murphy Center this year.
Yeah, and so let me get the game thing kind of put together a little bit. We're still kind of discussing that we've reduced the complimentary tickets from 50 to 30 is the official allotment, because I do feel like it's important for players, parents, and families to have some sort of representation at the game. So that's sort of the minimum. Rick and I talked just really briefly this morning about some of this, and a lot of places we go, particularly in women's basketball, the 15% doesn't really impact some of the crowds where we go. So I think it's going to be a real case-by-case basis on the 15%. Some of the places that draw pretty well for women's basketball, like a Western Kentucky, it might be a little bit more difficult on those. So Hannah and Don, I wish I could say I know the definitive answers to that, but I do think it's going to vary from arena to arena, and also from men's basketball to women's basketball as well. I think the chances of following the men's teams with those restrictions and kind of the crowds that normally get drawn for those games might be a little bit more difficult on that. But I think there will probably be some opportunities for fans at away women's games.
I'll let them kind of figure it out with us.
Oh, and practice? Yeah, that practice, we just ask them to come and sit above the rail and sit not close to others. And I know we've had a couple of our regulars at our women's practices helping Coach Ensel coach a little bit. And they're always good to see there. And so we welcome them and to come in and if they want to watch our teams. And I know Nick's the same way. So we just ask that you sit above the rail and keep your distance from the players in the court, and everything should be fine.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Whichever.
And Chip, the only other restriction, and it's like every place indoors on our campus, is that if you're indoors and not in your office, then everyone's required to wear a mask. So we'd ask the people, if they come to the practice, that they also wear their mask.
Well, and just as in football, when basketball season starts, fans will be asked to wear masks for the entire game, as long as you're not eating or drinking, correctly?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And speaking of eating and drinking and other fan amenities, how have the concession options worked out so far in football, and what do you see going forward in basketball as far as concession options, restroom availability, all of those fan needs type things?
Yeah, and with football, we've been really able to offer almost the entire menu. It's been a kind of a grab and go at the concession stands, and I think that's worked out pretty well. We've been able to maintain our beer and wine sales as well, and we haven't had any problems with it. So I would anticipate the same thing. Chip, the one thing that I do miss is that I miss the beer garden in football, and I'll miss it in basketball. I thought that was a tremendous amenity, and so that's one of the things that we'll be missing in basketball as well, that will carry over from football. The whole flow of traffic's got to be a little bit different. We're going to try to keep so ground level entrances. We're going to try to keep 2 of those portals open. One of which we know for sure will be kind of where our men's team runs out. We'll keep that open to fans, and we'll basically have the men's team run out and enter the court from the other portal on that other side of the basket. So more by where the football locker room is. So they'll go down the hallway and enter the court that way. So on the men's side, we just want to separate the players from the fans, and that's what the NCAA and the Conference USA wants us to do. So for sure, that portal, it's a busy portal for our fans, and I want to make sure our fans have the priority to that portal. So our team will make the sacrifice and go through the other portal, and that's really a small thing to ask for us. On the other side, we just got to figure out which portal. We've got the visitors portal and the women's portal that come through, and logically we might ask the women to come through the same portal that the men are coming through, so we can keep that portal on the other end open for fans as well. Haven't kind of nailed all that down yet, but that's kind of a preliminary plan. Got to figure out a way to keep the visitors locker room, and I think we've got a plan separated for that ground level bathroom over by the BRAA offices and those kind of things, because that bathroom gets quite a bit of use. And if we can figure out a way to keep that bathroom in use and away from the visiting team and the locker rooms, I think that that would be a really good thing. So we're looking at kind of locker room locations for our visitors and ways to separate them from the fans as well. So the flow is going to be a little bit different. We're going to try to keep people from walking near the court and those kind of things, and enter those two portals as they go up. And obviously, all the doors that we normally have open on the concourse level will stay open, and people can enter the building up there as well.
And James, I think with what Chris is saying, as much as you want to be able to leave those lower portals open, it will make life easier for a lot of folks if they use the upper entrances, if possible, if that works out for them, and come down to your seats instead of trying to come in and cross the floor along that baseline or whatever to get to your seats. Kind of give, can you paint a little bit of a picture of how the spacing might look at this point? When will it be similar to football, of how things have been marked and that kind of thing, once we get to those dates when people can come in and select seats?
Sure. So yeah, I agree that if you're able to make your way up to the upper level concourse and enter through there, I think that's probably going to be your easiest route to your seats. But that's not the case for everybody. So, if stairs are a bit of an issue, the elevator certainly still works if you need to utilize the loading dock and make your elevator entrance there. But yeah, if you have the means to be able to climb the outside stairs and enter through the upper level, I think that's a good pathway for you. With regard to how the seats will be mapped out, yeah, Chip, you're absolutely right. We're following the same protocol that we did throughout the entire seating chart of Floyd Stadium, which will be every other row will be available, meaning every other row is not available. And we need to keep folks away from the aisles so that way people can move up and down the aisleways without close contact. So the first two seats on both ends of the aisle will be unavailable. We're likely to use some sort of method to just kind of block those seats off. In Floyd Stadium, we were able to use stickers. That's probably not going to be the best approach in Murphy Center, but we've got a couple plans that we're looking at. And then, the 6 feet of social distancing. So that way folks do have that proper guideline. So which is basically, again, 3 seats in between each party. So if you come in and you pick seats on row 5 and you're the first person in to pick your seats, you could pick seats 3 and 4, and then 5, 6, and 7 would be unavailable. And then the next person could pick 8 and 9 if that's what they chose. To talk about that process a little bit, when you enter into Floyd Stadium, we're going to have essentially 2 different colored sheets of paper.
For Murphy Center.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you. Murphy Center. You'll have, let's say, green piece of paper for women and white piece of paper for men. And the seat tags will be on every available seat that we currently at that time have available. So you'll make your way with your representative to the seats that you are looking at. And then when you decide, okay, these are the 2, the 3, the 4 that I want, those seat tags will be removed. And that's what we'll take with you over to the checkout. And then those next 3 seats for that respective sport, if you just get men or if you get both or just women, we'll remove those and they'll essentially be recycled because those seats are no longer available for that particular sport. So it'll be pretty clear when you walk in. There'll be seats will be covered in 2 different colored pieces of paper. And if you're, if Chip, you walk in and you're just going to go with women's basketball this year, then, okay, keep your eyes out for the green pieces of paper. And that's where you want to make your way to.
And
Hey, Chip, can I ask a question right quick with James?
go right ahead.
Let's say that you have a family of 5. Let's say my son's family is 5. Tom, can his 5 sit together?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. So if you have 2 seats or 5 seats or 8 seats, as long as we can keep you appropriately away from the aisles, absolutely. So if Tom comes in and his 5, we don't have to. It's actually, to be completely frank, too. Like if your buddy Jim buys 4 seats and it's him and his wife and their 2 friends. If they pick the 4 seats together, then that's the decision they've made together on one account. So absolutely, your family, any families would be able to keep their seats together on the one account. Yes, sir.
That'd be good. Thank you, James.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Coach.
I would like to, Chip, I'd like to say something else before I go to practice if possible.
Go right ahead.
In times of need, you're always there to help your neighbor. I know I've been taught that my whole life. I think all of us, in particular in Tennessee, in Middle Tennessee in particular, when someone needs us, we're always there. Well, at this point, we need you. We need our season ticket holders. We need our BRAA. And if you're not part of the BRAA and you aren't a season ticket holder, then we need you to join the BRAA, and we need you to not say, well, heck, I'm gonna let it go by this year and I'm gonna come back next year. And we want you next year, but we need you this year to buy the tickets. And I think Chris hit on it early. Even if you may not come to the game, or you may not be able to come to all the games, go on and buy the tickets, because our athletic program right now, our teams need to see that support. And to be honest with you, I'd like to take pride in the fact that I can stand up at our summer meetings and say, our guys were there with us. And I know that Chris and Dr. McPhee, they've had to do some things that maybe it's not real popular, and that's what you do when you're the leader. But they did them for our safety, and they did them for our fans and our teams. So we need to reciprocate and be right in there behind our leadership. And I think that's what Middle Tennessee State University has been all about ever since I've been part of it. And when I say I've been part of it, what I've known about Middle Tennessee from the time I graduated from here in the 70s, all the way through the 80s and 90s. Maybe you didn't need that, but
no, I think that was very well said and very much needed here as we come to a close. And so I'll put the heavy burden on Chris to follow that with some final thoughts of his own as we wrap up today.
No, and I would like to echo what Rick said. I mean, Rick said it as good as it's been said all the way through the pandemic, that we do need you. We need your financial support. We need your physical support, all of those kind of things, because it is important. Everybody's going through a trying time, and people don't kind of realize kind of the burden that many of our student athletes are operating under, and kind of the sacrifices that they're making. I mean, goodness gracious, they're out there with masks on all the time at practice, unless they're doing their drills and those kind of things, that they've sacrificed so much socially. So they've got the chance to play basketball or golf or tennis or whatever their sport may be. And I think that you'd be really proud of our kids. I wish we could do an individual story on each one of them and the sacrifices they've made. And so they're definitely worthy of our support. And I think it's good for kids. It's good for them to play games. It's good for them to be competitive, and it's good for us to do these things. And so I'll do anything I can to get us to the starting lines for all of our sport. And Rick's right. We've had to make some decisions and concessions that we don't necessarily like to do every year, but we're doing it so we can play games. And I think it's good for the kids. It's good for the student athletes. It's good for their mental health. And they've been champions, what they've done in the off season and up till now. And I just respect and admire every one of them for the sacrifices they've made, because that's hard to do when you're in college, and to sacrifice that much socially. And our kids are doing it across the board.
Again, well said. Be on the lookout, fans, for emails and letters from the ticket office, because they'll be looking to schedule those times for and again, the information gathering still going on, as Chris said, as late as this morning's Zoom call that he was on with Conference USA athletic directors. I guess that will be it for today. We thank everybody who joined us, Coach Rick Insel, Coach Nick McDevitt, James Kentfield, and Director of Athletics Chris Massaro. Again, thanks for being with us today. We'll maybe having another one of these. We'll see. They kind of pop up from time and again, and just be able to pivot like we've been doing, right, Chris?
Yeah, and Chip, I think that we'll need at least another one,
Yeah.
and to get fans to, as we know more and to get our information out and those kind of things, and to develop a dialogue and those kind of things. So we wish we could do a lot more of this face to face, but right now we need to be clear and communicate and all those kind of things and answer as many questions as we can.
All right. Folks, we hope we were able to answer some of your questions today, and we know that there will be more. And as Chris said, we'll probably have another one of these here in a couple of weeks as we get closer to the opening of the 2020-21 basketball season. So for all of us who have been on today, thanks for being with us today, and go Blue. Good afternoon, everybody.